Hello, everybody, all my friends. I hope you guys are having a great day today. It's Chris back again, and today we're going to be talking about not a movie, not a major motion picture, but a documentary called Rock Hudson: All That Heaven Allowed from 2023, directed by Stephen Kijak. Okay, so I like documentaries. I watch more movies than I do documentaries, but when I see a documentary that really kind of just grabs my attention, I jump on it. And I'm a big fan of classic golden age Hollywood. James Cagney, Humphrey Bogart, all those kind of guys, Rock Hudson. And so when I saw this documentary a couple months ago, I added it to my list, and I said I'm gonna have to watch this. So uh, I just dove in one day, and man, it was a very informative documentary that really just kind of opened up my eyes about who Rock Hudson was, not only as an actor but as a person. So Rock Hudson, his real name is Roy Fitzgerald. Believe it or not, he got his name Rock Hudson from his agent. And Rock Hudson was he was gay all of his life. As a young actor and stuff like that, he was gay, but he wasn't openly gay because back then, if you were a homosexual, well, you were the enemy. You were worse than a black person or a communist. You know what I mean? So he kept it hidden all those years that he was performing and stuff like that. I mean, there were always hints and always kind of like innuendo to whether he may be gay or not, but he never openly came out as gay ever in his life. I mean, as far even on his deathbed, he didn't come out as gay. People just assumed it because he had AIDS, and that's what he passed away from. But learning about his career and his life was really, really, I guess, thought provoking. Because at the time when he was like 29 years old, he met this agent, and him and the agent hit it off. And the agent said, "Oh, he's a good-looking young man. He's got a nice physique. He's kind of macho looking. The ladies will love him." But really, he captured that tenderness, the care that women back then really longed for in a man. Because he was still rough and rugged and very handsome, but he was also you could tell he was tender on screen. He wasn't just slapping them around and grabbing them by their arms and all that. He was a very tender and caring uh, partner, I guess. Co-scene stealer. But he even got married at one point just to try to kind of throw the press and media off of the gay scent. You know what I mean? I guess that's a word. It's probably a terrible way to put it, but because people were starting to assume that he was a homosexual, and that he was, because he'd have these parties, these real debaucherous, almost like Freddie Mercury style parties where he would have a bunch of young men come over to his house. They called it the castle. So they'd come over to his house, and they'd all get naked and get in the pool and cook out and do all this kind of stuff. So he was very extravagant when it came to his personal life, when it dealt with his sexuality. When he was, on screen and in the business part of Hollywood, he really, he didn't want anyone to know, because again, that would be career suicide. It would be death for his career. And in fact, at one point, when they were kind of sniffing around on Rock Hudson's trail about homosexuality, one of his good friends, he and his agent, and this. I mean, I guess if I was a gay man, I may do this too. If I was a really famous gay man and coming out as gay would really hurt my career, I guess I would sacrifice my famous lover as well. I say famous. He wasn't really a famous actor or anything like that, but he was starting to become well known around Hollywood. And so basically Rock Hudson and his agent threw him to the wolves, and that killed that guy's career, but it saved Rock's. He was able to act for another 30 years after, all that came out about his friend. Um, but it was eye opening just um to see how he was, because apparently he was I guess, to not paraphrase, but to quote one of his partners, in the documentary, he was a sexual gladiator with a handsome member. So he was saying that they were just like he would just make love to all these different men, and no one ever caught on to it. But at the same time, his friends, his close friends that are still alive and talked about it, they said if you knew Rock, you knew he was gay. He didn't. I mean, he didn't flaunt it, but you knew. You know how you just kind of know some people are, even if they don't tell you. You just kind of know because of their mannerisms and their lifestyle, the way they act and stuff like that. Well, that's kind of how he was. Everyone that met Rock and worked with Rock knew that he was gay. They just brushed it to the side. In fact, in one of his last roles in Dynasty, he was, they found out he had AIDS. He was actually good friends with Ronald Reagan and Nancy Reagan, and they just kind of once he got AIDS, they just kind of made him a pariah. They wouldn't have anything to do with him really, even though they would still communicate with him. They didn't want to be seen in public with him and stuff. It was very strange, just to think that you've been this famous and this, uh, known most of your life, then to just be shunned because you have a sickness. And back to what I was saying about the Dynasty thing, he had to do a kiss with a girl on Dynasty. They were riding a horse. She fell off the horse. He got down there to talk to her, and they kissed. Well, they had to do that kiss like 5 or 6 times, and they didn't know anything about AIDS at that time. How it was transmitted, how you could catch it. Blood, saliva, all that kind of stuff. It has to. They didn't know anything about AIDS. It was almost like COVID a few years ago, where they didn't really know anything about it. They just told everybody stay away from each other, kind of thing. And don't touch anyone with it, type of thing. And that's what they did with AIDS back in the early to mid '80s. So Rock is, he's doing this kissing scene. It's not an intimate scene. There's no, he literally kisses her with his mouth closed. It's not like they're, sucking tongue or nothing. And, he even writes in his journal, and he was talking to his partner at the time. He said, he goes, I've washed my mouth out with 7 or 8 different kinds of antiseptic mouthwash. He's done all these things to protect his co-star, and he didn't. The people that were working on Dynasty did not know that he had AIDS at the time, right? He didn't tell anybody, so he felt incredibly guilty doing this kiss and not telling anybody that he had AIDS because you know he didn't want I guess he didn't want to be shunned or judged, even though later on that is what happened. But he had to do this take with this lady like 6 or 7 times, and each time he was just more and more heartbroken because he's like, "Am I giving her a death sentence? Am I condemning her to a terminal illness kind of thing? Is it like cancer? You know what I mean?" So he was really he was very self aware that what he had was a bad, bad thing, and he was trying to take care of his co stars. And then after it came out that he had AIDS, the girl that he kissed, none of the people in Dynasty even wanted to be around her in the same room. They didn't want to touch her because they thought she might have it. So I mean, the whole thing was just it was messed up just to see how people would treat other people because of that. And I really, really feel sorry for Rock Hudson because Rock Hudson, he was a fantastic actor. And from what I can gather from the documentary, he was a fantastic human being. He took care of his friends, his family. He loved deeply. He loved hard. He just loved in a different way than some of us did or do. And, that's cool. And I hate the fact that he was so ostracized and shunned at the end of his life. He had such a beautiful life, and then to just be cast out. Even when he was dying, he went to Paris to get treatment. And when they found out that he had AIDS, the hospital demanded that he be moved because they didn't want to be associated with anyone with AIDS. And the airliners would not fly him back from Paris to the United States because he had AIDS. His personal assistant had to book a $250,000 personal flight to get him back to the United States. That's terrible. I mean, the cruelty and cold heartedness of people. You know what I mean? Especially to someone who is so kind and considerate. But Rock Hudson was a very interesting person. I'm surprised him and Freddie Mercury never got. I mean, Freddie was probably a very young man, but their lifestyles seemed very similar. Like they may have rotated in one another's orbit at some time. Um, He was the movie star Freddie Mercury, where Freddie Mercury was the rock star. Anyway, guys, this is a great documentary, educational, informative, heartbreaking at times. It's worth your time. It's streaming on Max if you want to check it out. I think it's a Max original. So head on over to Max and check out Rock Hudson, All That Heaven Allowed, and you know, give it a shot. It's worth your time. As always, guys, like and subscribe. Ring the bell for notifications. Hop over to Facebook and join the Cinema Dolce uh, Facebook group. And find me on TikTok, guys, Cinema Dolce. But anyway, I'm going to keep making them as long as you keep watching them, my friends. God bless you. Peace out. And y'all have a great rest of your day.